In March 1936, Dorothea Lange was driving through Nipomo, California on her way home after a long day of work for the Resettlement Administration, a New Deal agency created by FDR to relocate struggling families onto land developed by the government. Lange was a photographer. For the last 15 years or so, she'd made her living taking portraits of the San Francisco elite, but after the Great Depression hit, she left her studio and began to document the effects of the crisis on residents of the city. On seeing those photographs, Roy Stryker immediately hired her to work for the government on a project that would involve documenting poor rural workers in a propaganda effort to elicit political support for government aid. Lange was riding home having finished her work, film ready to be sent back to Washington, when she passed a pea pickers camp. Pea picker was a name given to poor migrants from eastern cities and towns who moved west, often to California, looking for farm work during the Depression. At this camp, an early morning frost had killed the crops, so some 3,000 people were left in their makeshift homes with no work, some starving. But Lange passed them by, exhausted from the day's work. It was 20 more miles before she turned around. She didn't stay at the camp long. In about 10 minutes, she would be back on the road again, but not before taking one of the most iconic pictures in the history of photography. Here's how it happened. On arriving at the camp, Lange is immediately drawn, as if by a magnet, she said, to a family huddled under a tent. This is likely a test shot. There are a lot of things that make this composition unpersuasive. Only the child in the middle, for example, is offering her face to the camera. The oldest daughter on the chair doesn't seem to notice the camera at all, and the mother turns away, clearly defensive, not wanting her picture taken. So Lange talks to them, as she's learned to do after working this beat for a long time, and she helps the family arrange themselves. This composition is definitely more pleasing than the last, but something's still not quite right, and it has to do with the eldest daughter here. Remember, these photos have a purpose: to evoke sympathy from voters that would translate into political support. As James Curtis points out, having an older daughter, as well as 3 younger ones, could suggest to some that this woman wasn't taking the right precautions in family planning and was less deserving of support, or in other words, less like them. So Lange cuts her out. She captures or stages a breastfeeding scene, playing on the religious symbolism of the nursing Madonna, but the picture may have been too extreme for viewers of that time. What's more, it was clearly making the mother uncomfortable, and Lange is starting to realize that she is the key to the scene, specifically her face. So she alters the angle, asks one of the children to come back in, and you can see the woman easing up. But the older child looks a bit awkward, and the post is blocking part of the baby's head, so Lange tries again. This time, having the great idea to include the trunk at an angle in the foreground with the empty pie tin, compelling imagery of the family's struggle and nomadic lifestyle. The child looks wistful, the baby is sleeping, and the mother has the right expression too. This is an extraordinary photograph. You can see Lange coming to it through a series of adjustments. It achieves the objectives of her project while being aesthetically powerful. It's exactly what Ron Stryker would have loved to see. But Lange thought she could do one better. This is the photograph you probably know. I don't think you can really appreciate it until you understand the 10 minutes that came before. A lesser photographer would have milked the children's faces for their sympathetic potential. Lange even tried to do that herself, but by the time she arrives here, she knows exactly what the focus needs to be. The daughters' faces turned behind their mother's shoulders communicates that message of family, a family of the right size, mind you, without taking away from the central face or the eyes, which seem at last to let down their guard as they search the distance in worry. The face is so important that Lange has the woman put her hand on her chin so that her arm points to it. It's a technique that she's used before. Anything that took attention away from the face would hurt the power of the image, which also explains why Lange had a darkroom assistant remove the woman's other thumb here, where she was holding the post, so that she could keep her other hand to her chin. All this manipulation, of course, speaks to the fact that there is very little spontaneous in this iconic image of so-called documentary photography. It's supposed to communicate a candid truth about the moment, but this is anything but candid. Whether that diminishes its power is up to you. For me, being able to actually see the steps of Lange's craft enhances her work. It gives the photograph a third dimension. Almost as soon as it was developed, this photo took on a life of its own. After it was published in a San Francisco newspaper, the government sent 20,000 pounds of food to the migrant camp at Nipomo. Stryker fell in love with it and sent it all across the country, after which it came to define the Depression in the American consciousness, and on a deeper level, it became the archetypal image of struggling families in any era. A second thought, a skilled photographer, a mother, her kids, and 10 minutes in 1936 that will live forever. Next time you have an instinct to turn around, listen to it. Hey everybody, welcome to 2019. Thank you so much for watching. This episode was brought to you by NordVPN. If you care like I do about your privacy and security online, you should absolutely be using a VPN or virtual private network to keep your data safe by allowing you to connect to stuff remotely so prying eyes can't see your IP address and private information. I've had a few hacking scares myself, so VPNs really help ease my mind, and NordVPN is your best option. If you're watching this right now, you get 75% off a 3-year plan if you go to nordvpn.com/nerdwriter, plus an extra month free when the code Nerdwriter is used at the checkout. I've shopped around in this space, used a few VPNs, and NordVPN is definitely my favorite. Not only does it have military-grade encryption and over 5,000 servers in 62 countries, you can run it simultaneously on up to 6 devices, which means you can run it on computers and your phone, so when you're accessing the Wi-Fi at a cafe or an airport, you know you'll be safe. This one's a no-brainer. And again, NordVPN is offering my viewers 75% off a 3-year plan plus an extra free month if you use the code Nerdwriter at checkout. Just go to nordvpn.com/nerdwriter. Thanks guys, I'll see you next time.